Truths about relationships that people don't tell you. Today, my loves, we're going to talk about 20 points, 20 specific points that I feel like we should talk about more often when it comes to relationships. And whether you're a person who are in a relationship right now, you're dating someone, you're married, you're whatever, doesn't matter. Or if you're single, but you think about relationships or you want to be in a relationship, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter your situation right now. This episode can be useful to you. Because as always, my love, we are going to try to be as realistic as possible. I feel like we have a huge problem right now with romanticizing relationships. And it's funny because part of me is like, I am so glad that we're starting to romanticize certain things so that people build certain standards. And on the other hand, I'm like, we're losing touch with reality. To the point that Michelle Obama, I think it was last year or a couple of years ago, she talked about her relationship with Obama and how the 10 years since so when their daughter was born, their first daughter was born, those 10 first years were extremely challenging. That she was pretty much like, I don't want to, it's been a while since I watched that, so I don't want to like try to quote her because I'll probably do a very bad job. But you should watch the video. I just know that she said something like, yeah, we had very tough years, but this is your person, and like you get through this. Like when you want to be with someone for so long, then this is gonna happen, basically. And a lot of people on social media were like, "This is toxic. This is so toxic. You are encouraging women to be in shitty relationships," and then it just becomes like. If you're just listening to this and not watching the video right now, I'm rolling my eyes to a level that you wouldn't believe. Like that's how much I'm rolling my eyes to this comment that, oh, it's toxic. So it feels like you cannot talk about certain things that are important to know because all of us go through this in partnerships and relationships like this. You cannot talk about them because, oh, it's going to sound like it's toxic. So let's do the opposite. Let's talk about them today. Okay, let's talk about some of these things today. So if you're interested in this topic, come have a seat at the adults table and let's talk about relationships.
I'm Fernanda Rodriguez and welcome to the adults table.
All right, friends, I'm going to start. So let's first kind of orient ourselves in this episode. First, I'm going to talk about some of the foundation of what you have to know about relationships. Okay, we're going to define certain things about relationships. Then we're going to move to some of the experiences that you might have once you start dating someone or once you get married, whatever. And then we're going to get to some advice, some pieces of advice specifically to who's in a relationship or who wants to be in a relationship. Okay. So let's start with, I'm already going to give you some tough love here. The first point is a lot of times when you think you want a relationship, you don't want a relationship. You want something else that you think a relationship is going to be able to fulfill. We often try to project onto other people the responsibility for things that we can only do it ourselves. Okay. So if you actually knew what a relationship is and the work that you have to put into a relationship, and when I say a relationship here, I'm thinking long-term relationship. Okay. Because you can have, very quick relationships just for the sake of, getting to know people and having experiences. Great. But the type of relationships that I'm saying here are the ones that many of us often look for, which is having a partner for life. If you understood, if you understood, my love, how difficult it is to share a life with somebody, and I say this in the best possible way, even if the person is a perfect fit for you, you share the same values, you have the same vision, it's still a different person. You were still raised in a different way. You still have different personalities. So sharing your life with someone is the most beautiful thing, in my opinion, honestly. But at the same time, it's very challenging. So the idea that we project, it's funny because I think that idea that we project about what a relationship is, I think it ends up being much more than what we think. But at the same time, it's very different than what we once thought. I don't know if this just made sense. It sounds very confusing the way that I'm saying it, but it's a pretty basic concept. But what I mean about most of us don't want a relationship is that there's something else that we want. Maybe it's being seen. Maybe it's being, validated. Maybe it is, you don't know what you want for your life. So you just want someone to tell you what you should do and you just want to follow this person. It's way easier to do that than to just create your own path, right? Maybe you want, I don't know, you want money. Some people, and I don't say this in like a gold digger type of thing. I say it more in the sense of like, and I say this also because a lot of people commented on my TikTok post when I posted about this, and they're like, "Yeah, I realized that I wanted money. Like, I just want to have a better financial situation." And when you combine incomes, that's much better than one income, objectively. Again, not about being a gold digger or anything like that, but yeah, some people they don't make enough for themselves, so they're like, "I want someone else to share this responsibility with." So there are so many things, and I don't think that your what is it? Like your, oh my gosh, your goal or your intention by having a relationship, it needs to be like, yeah, because I want to share my life with someone and create something with someone together. It needs to be like only this motivation. That's the word that I was looking for. That has to be the only motivation. But you do have to somewhat understand where your motivation is, because if it's something that only you can give to yourself, then maybe you should explore those ways before projecting it all into one person. Because what's going to happen is that they're not going to be able to fulfill that to your expectations. You're going to become frustrated. You're going to dump that person because you're like, oh, I can find someone else that can give me that. And at the end of the day, you're going to find out that only you can give that to yourself. So, a lot of the process when we think about like wanting a relationship and distracting ourselves with the idea of a relationship, the process we should be doing is, okay, what's missing in my life? How can I build a life that I want to live? How do I build a life that I'm looking for? And many times you're going to find your person once you build that life, which is really interesting. Like once you start to shape your life in a way that feels authentic to you, feels like, you are working hard to fulfill your own needs, then you find the person because they're in the same places or the same energy, so on and so forth. That is not to say that you should be self sufficient in the sense of you're a person who doesn't need anyone. Actually, maybe self sufficient is like you should be, because as an adult, like you have to be able to figure it out basically and count on yourself. But I also don't subscribe to the belief that you don't need anyone. I used to be this person. I used to say like, "Oh, but I don't need anyone. I don't need any man. I am so independent. I'm so this, I'm so that." Bro, we need each other. We really do. We need people in our lives. It's impossible to be happy alone, and it's impossible to be the very best version of yourself alone because you grow so much with each other. So I think that be self-sufficient in the sense of yes, be able to take care of yourself, look after yourself and all of these things, but open yourself up to share a life with someone and have, not have the need to be independent or do everything yourself. That's my point. I try to be cautious with these words because at the end of the day, my idea is that yes, you have to, have your own money, like all of these things, have your own money, have your own independence, have your own life, take care of your own happiness. Don't depend on someone to do this, but also don't be the girl who are like, I don't need anyone for anything. I can do it all myself. You don't have to do it all yourself. That's my point. Anyway, this first point was longer than I expected. Let's talk about the second truth about relationships. We don't want what we think we want many times. So, we talked about the fact that not all of us really want a relationship. Maybe we want something else. But okay, you do want a relationship. You do want to have a partner. A lot of times you're going to think that you're looking for a certain type of partner, but deep down, you're looking for a completely different type of partner. Here's what I mean by it. Maybe in your mind, you're just repeating a narrative that you listen to that sounds beautiful on paper. You say, I want a guy who respects me. I want a guy who, appreciates me. I want someone, doesn't have to be a guy. I want someone who is hardworking and who has his shit figured out and we're able to, build a life together, whatever. You have this idea of the person that you want. And by the way, you should have that idea, right? You should put time into understanding, hey, this is the type of partner that I'm looking for. But you also have to be very aware about the type of partner that you want subconsciously. For that, you have to start watching your actions and who you say yes to and who you say no to. So many times in my life, I've done this myself many times, and I've seen my friends do this many times. They tell themselves, I want someone who respects me, who, the feeling is reciprocal. I want this, I want that. And then the first guy who shits on their face, okay, the first guy who's like, hey, I don't know if I want you. I don't know what I'm looking for. I really don't want anything serious. Like the guy's telling you the opposite of what you want. And the guy's showing you, or the person is showing you the opposite of what you want in a partner, and you stay. You're like, no, yeah, that's fine. You tell yourself all of those lies. So until you understand that what you tell yourself is not necessarily what you look for subconsciously, you don't start to change. And the yeses that you say, the no's that you say, the moment that you walk away, all of these things you have to become aware and understand the fact that there are secondary gains by choosing a certain type of partner. And although the idea might sound crazy, like, how come am I choosing a partner who's not available, who, cannot give me a reciprocal feeling and all of these things? You also have to understand that by choosing that scenario, you're avoiding something else. So, what is it that you're avoiding? Maybe you are afraid to be loved. You're afraid to fuck it up. So, you'd rather just deep down, very, very on a deep level, you'd rather just be with someone who's shitty because then you cannot fuck it up. They're going to fuck it up and you're going to have to deal with it versus you hurting someone. Maybe, I don't know, the idea of love deep down and relationship that you have is very different than what you actually think. Maybe you are afraid of commitment. I don't know. I don't know. You have to understand your why behind it and kind of your secondary gain. But the truth is that there's a lot of subconscious factors that you have to look at. And, this whole process can be very helpful when it comes to actually finding someone who matches who you are and what you're looking for. But first, you have to understand that sometimes you're not looking for what you think you're looking for. Now, the third point, which is related to this one, is the fact that a relationship is an agreement with two people. And when I say an agreement, yes, I'm also referring to all of the agreements that we make with each other. Oh, we're going to make this agreement that we're going to be monogamous, for example. Oh, we're going to make this agreement that we never sleep, never go to bed, mad at each other, whatever. Okay. Whatever agreements that you have. But what I want you to think about when I say agreement, it's an emotional agreement, okay? And like an unspoken agreement. So you have to understand that whenever there is a relationship, somehow the two parts are benefiting from it. If it is a very shitty relationship for one of the people in that dynamic, there is a part of that person that somehow might be benefiting from it. So remember, I talked about secondary gains. Remember, I talked about all of those subconscious reasons why we would stay in a shitty relationship. When I say that a relationship is an agreement, you have to understand that both parties are benefiting somehow. So, where are you benefiting from staying in a shitty situation? What are you avoiding by staying in that position? Even if you know, oh, this is not a good relationship for me, this is not the best relationship for me. So, what are these agreements? How do you kind of, and it's subconscious, right? So, that's why, too, I don't talk shit about other people's relationships. I used to be so full of myself and look at other people's relationships and be like, oh, they're doing this wrong. They're doing that wrong. Oh, they should be more like this. They should be more like that. They should, this guy should do more of this. That woman should do more of that. Or how does she accept this? How does he accept that? I used to be so judgmental until the day that I understood that relationships are agreements. So if that person wants to be in that agreement, and if that agreement works out for them, then who am I to judge? We're all different people, obviously. Obviously, if the person is in a shitty situation in relationship to the point that it's dangerous, to the point that you have to come up with an intervention, do it, you know? But a lot of times we just disagree with the way that people behave in relationships because it's not the way that we would do it. But we have to respect the fact that it's an agreement that works for them. And that's tough. That's tough because I can look at your relationship and completely disagree and be like, oh, this person is not okay with it. And I can try to convince you that you're not okay with it. And then deep down, you are okay with it because it's part of the agreement that you made again subconsciously. So I think it's very crazy, by the way, when we try to give too much opinion into people's relationships. Like, you don't know, really, truthfully, you don't know. If the person doesn't ask you for an opinion, it's very crazy to me that you would, try to create a narrative about someone else's relationship without knowing. So, these are the 4 points about, I guess, the foundation of relationships that I think we have to understand. Actually, oh my gosh, I just realized that I skipped one. Very important one. Oh my gosh. Okay. So, the fourth point is that a, a relationship is between 4 people. Let's understand this. A relationship is not just you and the person. First of all, a relationship is you and the idea that you create of that person, right? That's how it starts. And then it evolves to you actually seeing the other person as a whole and actually getting into a relationship with that human being versus just your idea and your projection. But your relationship is not just you and that individual, it's you, that individual, your subconscious, and that person's subconscious. Okay. What do I mean by this? So, when you enter a relationship with someone, you're not bringing just yourself and the things that you think are right or wrong. You're bringing all of the baggage from the things that you've experienced before that have shaped you in some level, and you're bringing things that you're not even aware of. Some of the things you might be aware, like, oh, because I was hurt before, then I tend to do this, I tend to do that. But when I tell you that there is so much more about you that you don't know than what you do know, my love, seriously. So you have to understand that you're coming to this relationship carrying your unconscious and your subconscious mind, whatever. So all these things that come with you. That person is doing the same. So a lot of times you're gonna get into fights that it's not you and the person, it's your subconscious and the person's subconscious. It's the craziest thing. You know those fights that you're like in arguments that you're like, what the hell? Like, why were we fighting over this? Like, what is this? You know, when you're like, you cannot understand and fathom the fact that you were fighting over that. Yeah, it's because it's not just you and the person, it's your subconscious and the person's subconscious. So a relationship is a dance between these four pieces. And throughout time, you learn how to deal with this. You learn how to deal with all of these sides of us, and you start seeing the other person as whole, right? So you start seeing that person and their subconscious, and you start understanding that a lot of things are not about you. It's just that baggage that the person brings and things that they are not aware of. So one of the reasons why I think relationships are sacred, it's crazy to me to say this, by the way, okay? Because I used to say, like, oh, I don't need relationships. I don't ever want to get married. I'm so independent. But the reason why I think they're sacred, and I've been in a relationship for 7 years now, the reason why I feel they're sacred is because of this dance that I just talked about. So the other person becomes a mirror to you, and it's the most fascinating thing. Because not only are you dealing with that person's subconscious, you start to see your own. And that is precious because that is part of the process of individuation and becoming who you are wholly. So you start seeing yourself in the fights that you have, in the arguments that you have, in the constructive conversations that you have, in the experiences that you share. You start seeing parts of you come out that maybe you weren't even aware of. And that adds to your self knowledge and the way that you uh, become who you are, basically. There is no r- type of like relationship, maybe like the relationship with your parents also bring a lot of that, but the relationship with a partner, with an equal, okay, because your parents are never going to be equal to you, but a relationship with an equal like this is a mirror, and it's fascinating, difficult, beautiful, and fascinating. So let's recap the four first points in the foundation. Number one, most of us, when we say we want a relationship, we don't want a relationship. We want something else. Number two, a lot of times when we do want a relationship, we don't want the type of partner that we think that we want. Number three, relationships are agreements. Number four, relationships are between four sides and four people, not just you and the person, the individual that you're dating or married to. It's their subconscious and your subconscious. That being said, when you do find one, this is what's going to happen. When you find a healthy relationship, okay, so let's assume that you're a person who you've always had chaotic relationships, always very hectic, very crazy, it's always that type of environment. And then you find a relationship that's healthy. You know what happens? You know what happens? You don't know what to do, basically. Because in that point, you start looking at yourself and you're forced to look at yourself. All of the noise that comes with a chaotic relationship is gone. There's no chaos. There's no major thing to solve like, hey, do you love me enough? Do you not love me enough? Are we on the same page? Are we not on the same page? All of this noise that gets in the way is gone. So then what do you have there? You have an individual who's real and whole, and you have yourself, and you have to deal with yourself and the things that you start finding out about yourself. And the questions become so much different. And that's, I feel like, when the real work begins. because in shitty relationships and relationships that are very loud, it's distracting. You're not experiencing the very deep layers of what a relationship can bring to your life. So if you're a person who you found a great relationship, it's good for you, and you're like, oh my gosh, something doesn't feel right, it feels off. I just wanted to understand that it's part of the experience. We think that all of us, because we want something healthy and because we want something peaceful, that we're ready for it, that it's easy to receive it, but it's not. We think that it's easy to receive happiness. It's easy to receive, that it's good for me. So why wouldn't I receive it? My love, for so many reasons. Seriously. Not only because we're already used to so much shit, so you don't know what to do, you don't know how to act, but also you have to remember happiness comes with the idea of betrayal. So if other people in your life are in shitty situations and you're having this beautiful life, then something must be wrong. Like something has to go wrong, right? And not to mention the fact that I already talked about, which is you start looking at yourself and the things that you have to work on yourself. It's not just you pointing fingers at the other person anymore and saying, hey, you suck, you cannot love someone, and you cannot, give them what they need. Like they can. So what now? You also have to look at yourself and at becoming the best partner that you can be for that individual. So it's a completely different story. The sixth point here is that when you're an independent woman, let's talk to my independent women out there because we're awesome, but at the same time, we're hard to deal with sometimes. And we have to, as we start opening up to our relationship, some changes need to happen. Cause trust me, I know exactly what it's like. Like I used to be like, I'm gonna do everything myself. No man is gonna be important in my life as much as like other things in my life. My love, big mistake. But anyway, so when you're independent, a very independent woman, what happens is that you struggle to integrate that person into your life. Okay. You become very territorial with your life because obviously you put so much time and so much energy and effort to build a life that you like, to build a life that you're happy with. And then you add this individual into your life and you don't want to just replace everything you've built so far to just start focusing on that one person, but you have to do an integration process. How do you integrate this person in your routine, in your group of friends, in all of the things that you build and then you have so much love and appreciation for? And sometimes that can be challenging. I see that with all of my super independent friends. They're always like hyper aware of what their partners are saying, especially when it's like they just started dating and they bring them to the friend group. So they create this war in their minds, okay, their minds between the partner and the friends. The friends are fine, the friends are okay with it, but they create this war between my life and my partner, almost like as if they're competing and something really bad is happening. When like objectively it's just you integrating the person into your life. So they start like overthinking, oh, what is my partner saying in front of my friends? Oh my God, what are they gonna think of me? Oh my God, no, I don't wanna be this person who just like doesn't go out with their friends to go out with their boyfriend. Oh, I don't wanna be this person who doesn't go on a trip with their friends to go on a trip with their boyfriend. My love, if you don't wanna be this person, don't date. Don't get in a relationship. I'm telling you. You can have both. You can have the trip with your friends and the trip with your boyfriend. But if you don't open up room in your life for that new person, it's not going to work. And it's okay. You're not going to be, uh, you know, uh, I don't know, like stupid for opening up space in your life for a man or for a woman, whatever, whoever you're dating, you know? But we create this idea that, oh my gosh, I have to be so protective of my individuality. I have to be so protective. My friends cannot think that I'm trading them or for a man. Wait a second. Seriously. If you're looking for a partner, someone to share your life with, keep your friends. Your friends are always going to be here. Your real friends, okay? But you have to start opening up space in your life for a partner. Seriously. So what happens when you're independent is that you create this war in your mind. And until you start to soften up a little bit, to open up space, to make that person an actual priority, then trust me, when you do this, and that's why you do it with the right person, right? When I say right person, like you're not just gonna do this for a piece of shit. Cause then, yeah, you have to protect your life. But when it's a person who you're like, this person is great, then open up to that person. Okay. Point number 7, truth that we don't say enough about relationships. Communication is key. 100%. Okay. Yeah. 100% communication is extremely important. But I feel like two things are very important in a relationship and we don't talk about them enough. Number one is the ability to look at yourself. Okay. And number two is the reciprocity of the way that you both see the relationship. Let me try to explain this. There was a better way to word this. So let's talk about the first point, which is the ability to look at yourself. It doesn't matter, my love. It doesn't matter how well you communicate. You can be the best communicator on the planet, your partner, amazing. You can pride yourself for the fact that you guys don't get into fights because you're so mature and you can communicate. If you're both now willing to look at yourselves individually, nothing happens. Nothing changes. You're going to be talking to this. You're going to be talking to this freaking water bottle. It was the same thing. Yeah, communicate great. I'm able to say what I expect, what I don't expect, what I want, what I don't want, what I agree with, what I don't agree with. But to what? Like, why does it matter? If the person is not able to look at themselves and if you are not able to look at yourself. So I feel like when you are this type of person who are like, I am willing to face the hardest truths about myself. I am willing to face my shadow, like the parts of me that I'm not proud of. If you have this mindset and this commitment with the relationship, even if the communication is not there yet, it's not the best communication yet, you can find a way. And you're going to work together in this communication throughout time. Now that communication doesn't matter. It is 1000% one of the most important elements. And we're going to talk about communication a little bit here. But one of the most important things in a relationship. But I think that the ability to look at yourself and to put time and work in yourself is huge. And I think you can only do this. You can only be willing to get in touch with these sides of you and to change if the importance that you attribute to the relationship is big enough, right? It's high enough compared to what the person attributes. I feel like a relationship is like a third thing that you form, right? So there's me, there's you, and there's this beautiful thing that we create together, which is our relationship. We both have to see this and give this thing the same importance, right? If there's one side that is like, oh yeah, I'm willing to change everything, go above and beyond, I'm willing to whatever I need to do to make this work, and the other person is not, if that reciprocity is not there, that's not even the relationship that you want. And it's very surprising how many people continue to be in relationships that reciprocity is not there. That one side really values the relationship, but the other doesn't care much. The other just cares about themselves. And if they want, if they can have a buddy to tag along and go together and fine, just follow me, great. You know? But if within the agreement that the relationship has, remember the agreement, both parties attribute the same value, then the chances of them wanting to look at themselves is going to be higher. So I think that is extremely, extremely important. Now, eighth point about relationships, you learn through friction, not only through admiring the other person. Okay. So, one of the most beautiful things about being in a relationship with someone that you admire is that you can learn from them by just looking at them, observing them, seeing how they act in their lives. Okay. So, just by being there, you can learn from them. But the amount of learning and growth that happens through friction cannot be overlooked. Why do I say this? If you think that every argument is bad and like, oh, I take pride in the fact that me and my partner, we don't argue at all. We don't disagree. It's very, chill. You're going to get tired of that relationship at some point. I'm telling you. Like your relationship should be peaceful, but you should be able to have some friction, some healthy friction. And sometimes this healthy friction is going to be an argument that it's going to be so emotional to both parties that it's not going to look beautiful. Like it's going to be a tough fight. It's not just like, oh, we're super mature people and we're going to sit down here and each one is going to say what's bothering them. Like sometimes it's not like that. That's the reality. Sometimes it's not like that. Sometimes we have a hard time finding the words. Sometimes we have a hard time managing the feelings. That happens. Now, it's really interesting too, because sometimes you're going to be with someone that your core values are the same, but for other things, you're different because you're different people, right? And sometimes you're going to be in this extreme for something, and the person's going to be on the other extreme. And this process of pulling each other to the middle is, first of all, the most precious and beautiful thing. Again, going back to what we learned from each other, like I think that's gorgeous and beautiful when you're able to find yourself in the middle of things that you need to develop. So that process is beautiful, but it's not easy, right? Sometimes when you're like extremes like that, it's hard to even speak the same language because the way that you see something is so different than the way that your partner sees something that until you understand what they're saying and they understand what you're saying, that's already a lot of work and maybe a few arguments, you know? But the result of that, when you are talking about two people who look at themselves and who are willing to put the work, the result of that is that we pull each other to the middle and we add to each other's lives by bringing a different perspective. So I don't think being with someone who's the same as you in everything, first of all, I don't think that's realistic. And second of all, I don't think that's productive because we learn from each other. And it's beautiful that we learn from each other. But it's not always the process itself, it's not always beautiful. Please be very kind of open minded when I say this because I'm not saying you should be in a relationship that there's only yelling and, people are not willing to look at themselves. They just want to burst at each other and like yell at each other and control each other. This is different. Okay. But also don't expect that a good relationship should be a relationship free of any friction because friction makes us grow. Okay. Let's go to point 9. Point 9. A relationship is not just a choice guided by feeling. It's a choice guided by consciousness. What I mean by this is if you rely on only feelings all the time, oh, I have to always be super happy. I have to always be super sure of this person. I have to always be like, I cannot have any sort of doubts at all. I cannot have any. If you think that that's the way and you panic, if those things aren't true, then it's going to be really difficult to find a partner because this is normal. This happens. The fact that we have to make the choice to be with that person constantly because life's going to happen. What you have right now is not going to be what you're always going to have. Life changes. You transform. The relationship transforms. And to Michelle Obama's point, when she talks about when they had kids and their first kid and how challenging the 10 years after that were, and like 10 years is a lot, man. It's not 10 days. Like 10 years is a shit ton. And she said, but I take 10 bad years and 20 amazing years over none at all. And I am with her. I 100% agree. And if you don't understand that, yeah, sometimes your feelings are going to be very strong, like about that relationship. Sometimes you're not going to be so certain. Sometimes you're going to question it. Sometimes you're going to be, I don't know, if you don't become okay with that fact and you understand that a relationship is a choice, it's a choice to be with that person, it's a choice to go through the hard stuff, then it's going to be very difficult to find someone to share your life with. Because the problem is not, sometimes the problem is the person, but a lot of times the problem is not the person. The problem are the expectations. So keep that in mind. Number 10, one thing that happens when you find a partner, and this is, again, I'm talking about a partner to share your life with. I'm not talking about a random dude. Like, I'm not talking about a random dating situation. I'm talking about someone for you to commit with, okay, and share a life with. If that's what you want in life, you don't have to want that. So when that happens, something very interesting that you're going to find out is that your family nucleus changes. What do I mean? So, what you used to see as your family, which is your mom, your dad, your sister, whatever, they're always going to be your family. They're there. You love them. They love you. You share moments. It's amazing. But your real family, like your family from now on, yeah, it's still them, but it's your partner. The person who you're building a life with is your partner. The person who you're committed to is your partner. The most important person in your life after yourself is your partner. This is a conversation that's tough to have because people are like, I would never let a man be the most important person in my life. Then, my love, it's because you're not with the right man. When you are with a man, not like a kid, not like a dude, when you're with a man, you understand that, yeah, I like this person has his shit together. This person is my partner. And that's amazing. Like I will prioritize this person in my life. It's amazing. I'm telling you again, as someone who used to be the most, oh, I'm so independent. I don't need a man for anything. Oh my gosh, it's because you haven't met a man, you know? But anyway, and again, okay, I'm saying man, but whatever, whoever you date. But that process needs to happen. The process of you understanding that your partner is now your family and it's now the person you're building a life with and it's now the most important person in your life. That process needs to happen. So many times, what happens is your partner stays married, quote unquote married, to their parents. So, for example, you're dating a guy, or you're not dating, you're married to a guy that his mom is still the most important person in his life. So, he's still a mama's boy. All he does is please his mother. Between you and his mother, it's always going to be his mother. And he's never going to actually marry you emotionally. Emotionally, he can marry you on paper. Emotionally, because at the end of the day, he's married to his mother. And that dude, that drives me crazy. There's that show. I think it's what in English. I think it's Strained with My Mother-in-Law. I don't know, but people go to this island, and it's the couple and the mother-in-law, and they have like these challenges that they have to go through. Whatever. But that show gives me so much anxiety because it's a bunch of guys who are still married to their moms, and that drives me fucking insane. Seriously, like you're equals in this relationship and you should see each other as such and you should place the same importance in each other, and you should, like, you're a team and this is the most important person in your life. So but you also have to make this assessment on your life. If you're the person who's you're still married to your parents, like, is that you make your decisions and your choices to please them, or you make your decisions and your choices as a team to what's best for you and your partner, right? So this shift needs to happen. And sometimes it's challenging because sometimes it comes with a feeling of guilt, of betrayal. Oh, but is my mom going to think? What is my dad going to think? What is that? Like, you're an adult. You're an adult, my love. You're an adult. And your partner is your partner. Okay. So, very, very important. The other aspect that we want to talk about, point 11, let's briefly talk about, because we've been talking about, healthy relationships, but let's briefly talk about toxic relationships. I don't want to go too much into this because I know it's a very sensitive topic. But one thing that I think is very important that we don't talk about enough when it comes to toxic relationships is that until you start to look at yourself, you don't get out of a shitty situation. We think that just by pointing out how much the other person sucks, we're going to be able to help a friend who is in a shitty situation like that, or we're going to be able to help ourselves. And yeah, that process is important. That process of saying, hey, this person sucks, actually. This person is not the best partner for me. Yeah, that sucks. But you already know that. You already know, like, consciously, you know that. You know that this person is not, this person is not the partner I'm looking for. You know it. What you have to deal with is the fact of, why can't you leave? And the reason why you can't leave is something that you have to work with yourself. It's not just pointing fingers at somebody else. So I briefly want to touch on this. I don't want to get too much into detail, but because again, it's a sensitive topic. But whenever you're in a shitty situation, start doing the work in yourself. Seriously. And I say this with a lot of love because you're not the one to blame for this. You're not. You're in a shitty situation and the person is responsible for all the shitty things that they do. But for you to get out of it, you have to start working on yourself. And yeah, it's just the reality. Number 12. This one, I stand by this one so much. You get more in love with your partner throughout time. I 100% believe this because in the beginning, it's beautiful because it's the honeymoon phase. It's all projections. It's all that passion. It's all that, for some people. For others, it's just like, oh, I found this cool person, right? But I hear a lot of times that, yeah, there's a honeymoon phase and it's just this passion and whatever. And sure. But I do believe that as you start building things together, and especially as you grow, so you're living life together and you're growing and you're learning to communicate better and you're learning, what the other person values and you're able to give that to them. You get to know each other and you go through things in life. I think that a lot of these things that we go through obviously contribute to driving, like, I don't know, a distance between the couple. So 100% that's going to happen. But at the same time, I feel like these other things make you fall more in love with the person that you're with. So you both, improve your communication skills. Awesome. So look, now we're in a different phase of our relationship and it's awesome. It's amazing. So I think that they're both sides. There are the challenges that are definitely going to come and it's going to be hard as fuck. And maybe you're going to look at this person and you're going to be like, what the fuck? But then there's also the other side of it that is, being more aligned and things like that, that throughout time, I feel like, you really know the person and that is a different level of connection, which is really beautiful. So, point 13, your partner is not responsible for your happiness. They're not. They can contribute to your happiness. They should contribute to your happiness. They 100%, 1000% sure should. The relationship should be something that makes you happy in general. But the projection and the idea that that person is responsible to make me happy, and if I'm unhappy, it's that person's fault, you need to move away from that. Seriously. We are the only people responsible for our happiness. Okay. So you're the person responsible to fulfill your life, to know what it lacks, to know what you expect and what you want, to know and go after the things that you want with the help of your partner, with the emotional support from your partner. But that person is not going to solve your life for you. Neither will your parents, neither will anyone else in your life. You are an adult and you were given this person, which is yourself, at birth. From that point on, in the beginning was your family who was responsible for your happiness, obviously, because you're a kid, but you are responsible for yourself and for the happiness of that individual that you take care of, which is yourself. So when you're an adult, you must deal with the responsibility of making yourself happy. And you teach the other person who you're with what makes you happy. I love when you do this for me. I love when you say this, whatever. You teach the person, but at the same time, you cannot place that responsibility into anyone. Anyone. Okay. Point 14, you have to learn to compromise if you want to be in a happy and healthy relationship. This one was so hard for me. Being a very independent woman and going back to what I said before of creating this war in your head between your partner and your life because you've built such an amazing life and now you're adding someone to your life. And yeah, you're going to be protective, that's fine, but at the same time you also have to learn how to open up space. That being said, you have to learn to compromise. No one should be in a relationship with someone who only cares about what they want and what they want is the only thing that matters and it's the only thing that you're going to do, right? It sucks to be in a relationship with someone like this. A relationship between two people is a relationship between people who have different dreams and desires and goals and all of that. And individually, you should have these things, these desires, these dreams, and whatever. And you have to be very mindful of the things that are your limits. Like, I'm not willing to cross this limit. I'm not willing to give this up. But at the same time, if you're not able to be flexible and say, okay, I'm going to meet you halfway, or I am going to compromise on this because this here matters more to you and to the team, then you shouldn't be with someone. Seriously. If you want to be the person that you only make decisions for yourself, you shouldn't be with someone because it's going to be very, very hard. At the end of the day, if you're a team, you have to make decisions thinking of the team. Again, being very connected to what's actually a limit and like something that you're not willing to give up, which there are going to be non-negotiables. That's fine. But you have to become familiar with the concept of like what is it? Oh my gosh. These words today my brain is just it's gone. But you have to become familiar with whether something is a boundary, as in a wall, and where something is a fence. A fence you can add a door and open. A wall, I mean, you can break the wall, but it's there because, it's a more solid and firm limit, right? So in relationships, we have to have both. If you don't compromise, you're not cut out for relationships. I'm sorry. All right. Now let's talk about advice. Few pieces of advice. Point 15, do not complain about your partner to your friends. Oh, but we need to be able to talk about our relationships. 100%, absolutely. Just choose what you're going to say. Choose what you're going to say, who you're going to say that to. Have a therapist. I don't know, like you have to talk about your relationship. Don't get me wrong, you do. But I have some friends that all they do is talk shit about their partners to their friends. It's all they do. Like they see their friends, the first thing that they do is start just venting about their partners, talking the most outrageous things. And then your whole friend group creates this idea of the person who you're with. And next day, you guys work it out. And then everyone in the group has that image of your partner now. So you have to be like, not to mention that it's ugly, like it's stupid. Like, why would you be shitting on the person that you're with all the time? Like, what is this? So you have to talk about your relationship, but you have to be very cautious about who you talk about your relationship with and what you say. Point 16, over communicate. I said we're going to come back to agreements and communication. Build the agreements, over communicate. I cannot stand this shit, which is like, oh, if he was the person for me, she would know you're an adult. The only person who knows what you want without you communicating was your mother when you're a baby and you're crying and you couldn't communicate. And she knew what you wanted. It's the only event in your life that's going to happen. When you become an adult, you communicate. You communicate. And the more you communicate, this is what's interesting. The more you communicate, the more the person starts to understand your wants, your needs, your patterns, and the more they can deliver without you asking. But you have to communicate. Look at that. That's paramount. You have to be able to say, this doesn't work for me. I didn't like this. I like this. You have to be able to say these things. Don't think that you're in the wrong relationship just because you're having to say the things that you expect. That's a mature relationship. Obviously, if you're telling a person, hey, I want you to respect me, then we have problems, right? But even I was talking to a friend this week and she told me she recently started dating and she's like, oh, I was upset because I had a shitty day and he didn't give me what I needed. But then she was like, but I didn't know what I needed myself. So I couldn't even ask for it because I didn't know what I needed. So the conversation that we had was around like, yeah, that's going to happen. It's also going to happen that we're going to have days that we're like, we just want to feel better. And we want someone else to figure out what that looks like and what that means, right? Because we don't even know. So that's going to happen. But you have to have this process in your mind of, okay, if I'm upset that this person didn't do what I wanted, what is it that I wanted? Because I have to be able to tell them, listen, when I'm feeling this way, this is what I like. And it's not because the person loves you less that she or he wasn't able to do that for you. It's because you're getting to know each other. You're getting to know how you both operate. People are different. I'm going to stress this as many times as I can because we forget this. This person doesn't have the same personality as you. They weren't raised in the same environment as you. How are they supposed to know? You tell them. Uh, I see everyone getting flowers from their boyfriends, husbands, whatever, and I don't get them. Okay, if they matter to you, if you care about this, not just because everyone else has it, but because you actually care about it, you're going to open up your mouth, my love, and you're going to tell your partner, you're going to say, hey, it makes me feel really special when you give me flowers. I love when you give me flowers, especially when it's a random day. Awesome. It's not bad, it's mature. So over communicate. Number 17, don't ask for advice to everybody and anybody. Okay. I've said this many times in other episodes. It's not just because someone loves you and wants what's best for you that they are equipped to give you advice. And in relationships, it's not different. I've become so selective with the people that I ask for advice. So selective. Like if you don't have a healthy relationship, if you don't have that experience, and if you're not a person who's open minded, who is interested about this topic in general, I'm not going to ask you for advice. That ends up being more detrimental. Again, the person might be your best friend. They love you so much. But if they don't know what they're talking about, seriously, don't why would you follow that advice? Number 18, let people do things for you. I already said this many times throughout this episode, but I want to have a moment just to talk about this and focus on this, especially if you're an independent woman that you think you have to do it all by yourself. You don't have to do it all by yourself. In fact, it's a blessing when you understand that you can count on people and you can count on your partner. You don't have to do everything by yourself. A lot of times we get so frustrated because, oh, my partner is not doing things for me, for the house, whatever. But you don't ask for it or you don't let them do it once they try. This is the most important piece that I want to talk about because we talked about communication. But the other point is a lot of times your partner is trying to do something for you, but you say, no, no, it's okay. No, it's fine. No, I'll do it myself. Start saying yes. It's easy. Start saying yes. Even in my case, in some point when my partner used to tell me like, "Oh, do you want a smoothie?" Sometimes I didn't even want the smoothie, but I want him to create the habit of like, "Yeah, that's nice." And he's always done this, which is great, but I've always said, "Yeah," just to exercise the effect of receiving. When you're an independent woman, you're not used to this place of receiving. So you take the ball away from the person's hand all the time. You don't let them play. You just want to play yourself. And then you complain. You're like, oh, because I'm so overwhelmed. Bro, you have to start letting people do things for you. And this is not just your partner, but it's especially your partner. If you have to show all the time how strong you are, if you have to show all the time how independent you are, it's not because you're strong and independent, but because you're afraid of connection, because you're afraid of depending on someone in a healthy way. And it's fine to do so. It's fine to depend on people in a good way, in a healthy way. So start saying yes. Let people do things for you. Point 19, learn to communicate outside of fights. If you're in an argument, my love, and that's the only place that you communicate things that matter to you, that you expected from your partner, you're only adding more fire to the fire. That's not even an expression, right? But you're only like adding, you're already having an argument. You're like, oh, but because you didn't do this for me that day. Oh, because what is this? And I say this to you because I'm this person too. Like a fight seems like a great moment to start bringing up all of the things that I want to change. But I'm telling you, your life is going to change when you create the habit of bringing things up outside of fights. Seriously. And even when you say, going back to the flower example, even when you say, instead of yelling and being like, why do you buy me more flowers? Huh? When you come from a place of saying, like, it makes me feel so special when you buy me flowers. I love it, especially when it's a random day. Like it's a completely different tone. And listen to me when I say this, this works out way more and better than just yelling in a fight. And it's hard. It's hard for me too. But it's something that I've been trying to exercise more and more because it's part of communication, right? It's part of effective communication. Last but not least, my love, we got 2.20. If you live together with your partner, agree on chores. That's my advice to you. That's how we're closing this episode because it's something so simple, something so silly, but that many of you don't do. Many of you don't do. And then you get annoyed. You say, oh, but I do everything myself. Oh, because you're going to sit down and you're going to stop doing what? Agreements with yourself. Because this is what we do. We do agreements with ourselves. We're like, this should be obvious. Oh, but this should be obvious. Oh, but this person should be doing this. It should be obvious. No, it shouldn't. It shouldn't. Because you know what's happening? You have that agreement with yourself. The person has an agreement with themselves because you see life in a different way. And you don't have an agreement with each other. You don't sit down to say, hey, all right, so let's agree on who's going to do what. You don't sit down to say, hey, what are some of the things that, like, what's going to be our criteria for this? Maybe can you do more at the house and maybe I do more here over here in our life? Because a relationship needs to be reciprocal. It doesn't have to be equal. You don't have to do 100% the same things as me, but you have to add as much value in my life as I add to yours. So how do you add value in my life? How do I add value to your life? And how can we split these chores, considering our life together, you know? So sit down and talk about the goddamn chores. Listen to me. You're going to avoid a lot of fights. I could go on forever. There's so many points that I want to talk about, but for today, for now, let's end here. Let me know in the comments what are some more truths about relationships that we don't talk about enough. And yeah, I'm curious to hear your guys' opinions. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode at the Adults Table.